están? Gonza, Botquito por acá. Ya se me lengua la traba. Estamos de nuevo con otros Insight. Hoy nos acompaña Tronic. ¿Qué onda, Tronic? ¿Cómo andamos?
Buenas, ¿cómo están, chicos?
Volvió el
Bienvenidos.
almirante después de tanto tiempo. Acá está en un Insight más. Nada, bienvenido a todos. Vamos a ver un poco el Insight que acaban de subir hoy jueves. Así que, y lo voy a subir, este video seguro va a subirse a YouTube hoy mismo jueves también. Así que, nada. Bienvenidos a este Insight. Vamos a ver qué nos depara el día de hoy. Hoy, por lo que veo, Track Star se llama. El Insight debe ser alguna pista de carrera o algo, me parece. Así que vamos a ver eso primero. Y primero, no se olviden de dejarle like. Coméntenme acá abajo que me ayudan un montón, gente. Veo que subo los videos. No cuesta nada, un segundo comentar algo. Hola Gonza, bienvenido, gracias, no, lo que sea. Porque cuanto más like, más comentarios, a más gente le llegan recomendados cuando están viendo otro video. Así que ayúdenme, no cuesta nada, chicos. Es un segundito. No hace falta que donen dinero ni nada. Like y comenten, así el algoritmo de YouTube me ayuda. Y nada, y suscríbanse que me ayudan un montón. Bueno, vamos a ver el video. Le voy a poner subtitulado ahí abajo. Vamos a ponerlo ahí. Así no paro todo el tiempo a traducirlo. Así que vamos a ponerlo en Spanish. Ahí está. Perfecto. Vamos a ver qué dice Jared.
The public roadmap on the robertsspaceindustries.com website is the place to check out the new features, locations, gameplay systems, and technologies currently being developed for both Star Citizen and Squadron 42. But as with all things in game development, there are gaps, small breaks, quick moments when a single developer is forced to wait for another dependency to be finished before work on their primary or even secondary tasks may continue. Now, these happen at every game studio on every game project in development.
Okay.
But the stories of what fills these in-between moments, or ninja missions, as animation director Steve Bender referred to them on last week's Star Citizen Live, are rarely, if ever, shared. Now, with the team heads down focusing on bringing Alpha 319 with its new content and continuing performance fixes to live servers within just the next 2 weeks, and the staggered development of Alpha 320 already well underway that we'll be exploring here as early as next week, we hope you'll indulge us this week, as we thought we'd dedicate this in-between ISC to one of those in-between tasks that get so often overlooked. One developer's work between tasks to build a sequel, an expansion, and a potential evolution to the Grey Cat PTV buggy tracks to fill additional convention centers when big events like Invictus aren't running. So here's Stefan Damrow with an update to his one-person crusade to bring more fun to Star Citizen's original, first-ever working vehicle. It's true, my hangar module peeps will remember.
So for the first raid track, we thought of an interesting way to kind of fill up the convention center when there's no conventions happening there. So Martin kind of...
Qué casualidad, Tronic, ¿no? Que vamos a hacer el evento este.
Estaba pensando, ¿te acordás que estábamos diciendo ayer que el autito lo tenía que hacer más chico, que hagan otras pistas en otros lugares, ¿te acordás?
Sí. Vamos a hacer un evento. De estos que están hablando ahora, vamos a hacer un evento el sábado, Tronic, porque mañana noche yo no puedo. Así que vamos a hacer el evento este de las carreras el sábado. Así que, bueno, vamos a seguir, pero están hablando justo de la pista de carrera que vamos a usar el sábado para correr y el autito. Así que, bueno, pero vamos a ver qué nos dicen acá.
Did this track for the Orson Convention Center.
Ve, esa es la pista que hay ahora. Esa es la pista de carrera que vamos a usar para este sábado 6, creo que es. Sábado 7. Sábado 6. Vamos a usar esa pista de carrera para el evento. Así que estén atentos al Discord. Acá recuerden, igual abajo del video de YouTube, voy a dejar todas las redes sociales: Discord, Twitter, Twitch. Recuerden que estamos en Twitch todos los días. De hoy, nuevo horario ya, 10 de la mañana Estados Unidos hasta las 2 de la tarde. Creo que es algo de las 11 de la mañana Argentina hasta las 3, 4 de la tarde.
With this kind of neon advertisement filled space and this track which you can race on with your PTV. And
ahí están los autitos.
It was kind of handed over to me to kind of just wrap it up, do the bug fixing, and kind of just iron out the small problems so it can go live. And so our first racetrack was this kind of dark, moody space filled like up with neon advertisement lights, very kind of commercialized space around the racetrack.
Muy bueno.
So kind of after wrapping up the bug fixing of the first track, I moved on to some other tasks, but turned out that they kind of had just a bit of downtime in between. So we thought it would be a nice idea to just kind of make a second racetrack, since we have multiple convention centers. So there's
Claro, lo que
definitely
hablábamos con Tronic ayer,
some
que
space to
tiene que haber
fill
más
there.
pistas, ¿no?
And I started to build this second racetrack, kind of using the base that Martin built for the first one. So it's still work in progress, but let's take a look.
A ver, la nueva pista de PTP.
So for this new track, obviously we want to kind of keep it different and create something new to give a bit of a different vibe compared to the previous one. So we
La
took the same
hicieron
basis, which is all
como
the
tipo
racetrack
Minecraft,
pieces.
todo de nieve,
but
¿viste?
just kind of adjusted
Claro.
the stuff around it a bit. So first thing you notice is obviously it has kind of a different dressing around it.
Igual es
different
diferente.
styles. So this one is this snow-filled environment. Since this one will be placed on New Babbage, we thought it would be cool to kind of reflect that
Claro.
also
Claro, en
on
New
the
Babbage
interior
va a
a
estar
bit,
esta pista.
and just kind of get a bit of a different mood. So also the layout in here is different. So you still have the main hall where a lot of the racing takes
Ah,
place.
y se
but
va al
then
otro hall.
you also move into these side sections, which you have usually for conventions. So we have this other big room here to kind of
Alta pista,
play
re
around
larga.
with and use the space to also create a bit of interesting section for the track. So from here you kind of just
Altos
circle
torneos
back
se vienen, gente, ¿eh?
into the main room again. We have this nice, interesting circular room
Sí.
where we definitely want to put something eye-catchy and cool here, since it's kind of a prime spot for that. So you drive around here, and then it just leads you back into the kind of main hall again. So since I already mentioned the idea for the thematic dressing for this kind of from Microtech, but also instantly ideas of how we can use this setting kind of popped up in my head. So for example, as you can see, this is this very kind of hazy, cold, bit foggy space, and thought it would be cool to potentially kind of
No,
use
mirá,
some
no
areas
se ve
maybe,
nada ahí.
to take a
Y
bit of
vamos a ver
vision
ahí.
away from the
No.
drivers and kind of use it to make it more interesting.
Muy buena.
A lot of this stuff is still kind of in the very early idea phase, so not everything in here might necessarily kind of end up in the final racetrack, but this is just mostly just throwing some ideas out there. Another thing kind of associated to this dressing would be these kind of icy patches of the track.
Ah, mirá,
So on these
va
ones, actually your
más
vehicle,
rebaloso.
like has different grip on the surface, so it's all a bit more kind of slippery, harder to drive on. So you want to
Sí,
be
Luso, esta es una
mindful
pista de carrera.
if you drive over these patches. So for this area, I just mainly tested it out. So we want to obviously kind of keep it a bit more localized later to certain spaces and to balance it out so it doesn't feel just like unfair and taking control away from the player too much.
Sí, sí, este sábado tenemos un torneo.
Another thing,
Una carrerita.
like an idea would
Anotate,
be
Luzu,
these
en el Discord.
icicles, which could either be just kind of a visual dressing element, or maybe we could in the future physicalize and actually make interactable for the players, so they could reach down further into the
No.
kind of area where the
Ya
people
va a llegar.
drive, and then you could crash through them and kind of break them apart
Ok.
when you drive there.
Hey, Steven,
Yes.
adding obstacles
That's like driving a gray cat is hard enough. You don't think this is plenty challenge already?
Yeah, well, actually we got some other stuff in mind, which might make it even a bit more challenging. Let me show you what we got over here. So these are obviously all still in a very experimental stage. So these are for now just ideas which
picante la
might
pista.
or might not end up kind of in the
Recuerden el
final
GTA,
racetrack.
las pistas
So
que
these ones are basically just these kind of moving obstacles which make it a bit harder to navigate and drive around. Additionally, we have over here some stuff like, for example, this one would be an idea that you kind of have this lift section on the track just to kind of make it a bit more interesting. So
¿Qué tiene que
obviously you
frenar?
wanna kind of make it onto the
Eso mismo, como
platform,
que
be
corta
fast
la
enough to
dinámica de la
race
carrera.
on, because otherwise you'll kind of just have to wait until next time the piece goes down for you and lets you go up there. Then
Entonces, ya buena
another
idea.
idea would be here, this kind of little jump pad. So if I just get into the TV.
Ay, mira, ahí lo voy a probar.
So as you drive over it, it just kind of throws you up into the air a bit. That could be something cool potentially. Let's see.
Y ahí, a ver.
Over here, this could be basically just some
Ah,
moving
mira.
pieces of the track. So it's either like this ramp
Re
going up
picante.
and down, maybe even leading onto different sections of the track.
Está bueno,
Or
igual.
this
Me
piece
gusta.
which goes sideways. Obviously, you need to think about the implementation there a bit.
El puente medio como que para un poco la
this
carrera, pero
little
eso está mejor.
kind of obstacle here,
Ah, está
which
mejor.
gives a bit of a warning before it comes up.
Está bueno.
Claro, como que es muy cortante, pero bueno, no importa.
For
Un
the
obstáculo.
No, lo del puente, esto sí está
little
bueno, porque vos no desacelerás, tenés que esquivar, pero el puente
which
tenés que
just
frenar sí o sí.
Claro.
sort of
Ascensor.
drives on the track,
Uy, mirá, ella te da
so
super velocidad,
makes it
creo,
a
¿eh?
lot harder to navigate around, and then eventually just kind of goes off again.
Mario Kart en gráficos ultra. Sí, más o menos.
Sí, iba a decir lo mismo, Mario Kart.
A ver acá.
Do
Faltan
some
las bananas y
boost
los
pads maybe,
caparazones.
So just if you get into your gray cat again.
Hacémelo más de carrera, no me lo pongas blanco los PTV, ¿no?
Tendré que
jump
cambiar el
over
vehículo.
it, and it just
Vas a hacer
kind of
monoplaza.
Mirá, mirá la
gives
velocidad
you
que
a little
agarra.
boost.
Le da un boost. Sí, o ponerle colores a los
Potentially
autos.
some not quite
Sí, o
zero
números
G, but a lot
personalizados.
less gravity involved jumps over ramps, so you could get sections of the track where the gravity just
Te pueden ponerlo personalizados con números, con
is a little
colores.
bit turned down, so you
Pegatinas.
get
Una skin.
bigger and
Ah,
longer
Que le puedas
jumps.
poner diferentes tipos de skin.
Mira, estamos avivando gines, mira, para que compren la gente.
And you've been doing this in your spare time between tasks?
Yeah, so this is kind of just an in-between task while there's downtime on the kind of bigger, more important stuff. And again, like it's important to mention that the last stuff you saw is very much still kind of just in the idea phase, so it might or might not end up like on the next track, and it kind of just more serve just as a starting point for a discussion also with the other departments of how easy it would be to implement something like this. So it's synced on servers between players, so they're actually seeing the same thing happening at the same time, and it's not just
Claro.
like localized to one player's machine, and it's completely in a different spot for someone else.
Está la cagada, priorizar todo.
Eh, no.
Thanks for watching. I gotta get back to my real work.
Gracias,
now.
Corgil.
So what did we learn this week? We learned that in-between tasks are where individual developers can contribute fun and off-the-wall ideas to the game while waiting for dependencies to resolve. that one of the many ways this manifests is with quirky buggy racetracks, and that Stefan Demrau, sole architect of this endeavor in his downtime, may have a rather sadistic side I hadn't anticipated after seeing some of those moving obstacles. Most developers do. Now remember to keep an eye out for Alpha 319 with its mining updates, salvage mission modules, tractor beam improvements, new Loreville, continuing performance improvements, and more as it makes its way through PTU into the live testing environment in the coming weeks. There's Invictus Launch Week immediately after that, and possibly some Jumptown thrown in the mix somewhere between now and then. I probably should have paid more attention in the meetings. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share our week.
Gracias, Jared. Sí, muy bien, muy bien. Pero bueno, ¿qué onda? ¿Qué opinas?
¿Viste el poquito que dijeron? Los desarrolladores, mientras están haciendo sus tareas principales,
Sí.
están pensando en pistas de carrera de autitos. Como para que se agarraron de ahí, como para que no lo critiquen, están diciendo, en vez de estar haciendo pistas de carrera, ¿por qué no se preocupan en corregir los bugs? Pero fueron vivos. Esta vez dijeron, mientras estamos trabajando en cosas principales, en sus tiempos libres, entre tareas, los chicos están haciendo estas boludeces.
No te calenté,
lo hicieron bien.
No te calenté,
lo hicieron bien.
No te enojes.
Lo hicieron bien. No me enojo, lo hicieron bien.
Pero...
Para que no le critiquen.
Pero sí, boludo, cualquiera, boludo. Un insight para una pista de carrera. Bueno, está bien, ponele algo diferente, pero... sacaron una que está en Horizon. Nadie la usa, hasta el pedo, pérdida de recursos, de tiempo, pero bueno, nada. Allá de ellos, qué sé yo. Bueno, nos vemos en el próximo Insight, Tronic, la semana que viene.
Sí, señor.
Bueno,
obvio.
Así que ya saben, chicos, mañana Jumptown, mañana viernes, así que están todos invitados para participar de la Armada y conmigo también. Mañana Jumptown empieza a las 10 de la mañana Argentina, 9 de la mañana acá de Estados Unidos, donde estoy ahora. Y creo que alrededor de las 3, 4 de la tarde, horario de España. ¿Sí? No se olviden darle like, coméntenme acá por favor en el video qué les pareció la pista esta de carreras. Van a participar de los torneos que vamos a hacer. Este sábado tenemos uno, así que estén atentos a los Discord. Voy a dejar acá abajo todas las redes sociales, Discord, Twitter, Twitch, que estamos en Twitch ahora en vivo. Y nada, nos vemos en el próximo video. Nos vemos, gente. Chau, chau.